So last weekend, I decided to reread volumes 7 through 9 of World Trigger because I really missed the After Creator weekly anime experience. Naturally, the nostalgia came hitting like a truck, and just seeing the invasion and physical copies was really fun to just take a step back and really appreciate just how good the series art and choreography is. Volume 7 was around the time Tamakoma joined the fray, and this was also the time that Konami debuted her Sogetsu axe, and it got me thinking, this is one thing we don't talk much about. Not specifically her Sogetsu, but the exclusive triggers themselves and the potential of new triggers in general for the future of the series. There was a panel talking about the exclusive triggers' origin, stating that the exclusive triggers are a form of experimental neighbor technology that focuses on a specific aspect of combat, which renders them a bit unstable, especially with the Trion output requirement being extremely high. It's not something everyone can use, and yet there is also a lot of potential for Border to come up with new triggers through their own research. So to begin this conversation, let's first start with reviewing the key differences between Tamakoma and Border's triggers. So again, the difference between the Tamakoma optional triggers and triggers like Grasshopper or Lead Bullet is that there's a high risk and high reward. A lot of the normal optional triggers don't really funnel Trion into one stat, but more so provide a form of utility or extra combat ability integrated with their weapon of choice. Secondly, the Tamakoma triggers are triggers that have been brought back from the away mission, analyzed, and crafted into their own. They are not the standard type in any shape or form in comparison to what we're used to. What's more is that these triggers cannot be used in the rank wars because of their unique capabilities. Pretty sure no one will be able to block a Sogetsu hit outside of Chika. Last but not least, there is a high input requirement. The vast amount of Trion required can lead to some crucial decision making. While Konami's is a bit more stable and the only trade-off is the vast amount of Trion required, Reiji's Full Arms and Karasuma's Geist usually involves a Trion dump in which they are pretty much exhausting their supply of Trion, and in Karasuma's place, sometimes leading to a forced bailout. So knowing what we know about these triggers, how exactly does this information play a part in the creation of any new triggers? To answer this question, we have to go back to Season 1. Do you guys remember that back in the Black Trigger Retrieval arc, the 4 triggers that were handed over to HQ by the away mission team? Now imagine by the time the away mission saga itself is over, progress with using these triggers for our own crew is possible. See, if there is going to be any time for the introduction of new triggers and techniques, it would definitely be going into the climax of the series, giving people the chance to level up before the big showdown. I think that bringing these 4 triggers that were handed off back into the fray as 4 new opportunities for agents would be very cool, and it's something that Ashihara is more than capable of doing. A key thing to note here is that the standard Border optional triggers are typically not offensive on their own. They're more so additions onto pre-existing triggers, adding more utility in combat. Knowing this, I would assume that any new triggers would purely be weapons and that optional triggers for them will be coming later. Considering that Tamakomas are all offensive, it will be a great chance to show how Border themselves are keeping up. The best part is, with there being a potential focus in defense, offense, or range, and taking into account of certain trigger sets of agents, there are definitely some candidates that come to mind for potential upgrades. When mentioning defense and offense, what better users for there to get a new upgrade than Mikuma or Ko? Both of them wielders of the Reiga's trigger and having a knack for a defense and offensive mix in combat. Imagine if there was a new addition that could allow a better version of both worlds, something like, say, a Captain America type form of the Reiga's shield. The shield size can be increased and uniquely thrown with tracking to substitute the thruster and can ricochet as well. Smaller sizes having more velocity and speed for deadlier precision, while bigger and wider shields offer heavier damage for bigger targets at the cost of speed. The arsenal of World Trigger can easily be expanded upon, and it won't make anybody specifically OP. In my greatest shonen underdog video, I mentioned how everything with Mikumo has been fair game. He hasn't gotten any power-ups, but the arsenal of weapons in the series itself can grow, and perhaps triggers can be substituted out as well. This creative approach to the arsenal is something that should be welcomed because it's only going to add more unknown factors into future confrontations. This trigger will be more on the stable side, similar to Konami's setup, but going into power and range could be a fun mix for brand new types of weapons. There are plenty of weapon archetypes that aren't in the series and yet could fit in just nicely. RPGs could be used in the hands of Zoe, given he has a grenade launcher and can have a mix of tracking projectiles with Hound-like magnetism. Snipers could be introduced to things like bows with different types of arrows, ranging from lead arrows to explosive tips as optionals, which allow them to get into mid-range combat. There could be railguns that allow them to keep their range while also gaining a lot of power and armor penetration at the cost of Trion input. There could be scythes, hammers, sickles, or just practically anything that Ashihara may be able to come up with. I think introducing one more arsenal update in training period before the big battle in the future would really be a great idea to not only show the great foreshadowing and setup from season 1, but to once again show all the unique tactics and combinations squads can come up with. These triggers may not necessarily measure up to the uniqueness of Tamakoma's, but they don't need to. I don't expect Border to create a bunch of triggers that will potentially lead to a forced bailout upon Trion instability, nor do I expect him to follow Tamakoma's style. Given them being regulated by Kinuta, I have no doubt he will provide safe access to agents in the future. Of course, this is all just a creative theory looking into more optional triggers being integrated into weapons or just the potential of new triggers down the line, so if any of this sounds pretty cool to you, make sure to let me know in the comment section down below. That's pretty much it for me though. Thank you for watching, stay safe out there, and I will catch you guys in the next video.